to the ambulance if you're late, ask for the lights, or wait for them to leave. And go to the evening, talk to the paramedics
You have to let listen to the commentary.
I should go out on top. One trip down here, one trip up the top.
Huh?
Two different views of sightseeing. Angle goes in on Soulfield. I heard the same Rob did it.
Hello and welcome aboard the City Sightseeing Bournemouth tour. Your route today takes us to Poole Quay via Sandbanks. Please remain seated whilst the bus is moving and ring the bell if you wish to get off at any of the stops along the route. We look forward to showing you the best of the local area and telling you about the history and the people who helped shape it into what it is today. Be sure to hold on to your ticket, which entitles you to 10% off any other city sightseeing tour operated in over 100 locations around the world. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask the driver, who will only be too happy to help. But please only do this when the bus has stopped. As we head over the overpass, we see Bournemouth Pier jutting out into the English Channel to our right. Our award-winning beach is 9.5 miles long, stretching from Sandbanks in the west to Hindlesbury Head in the east. To our left are the lower gardens, with the Bourne stream from which the town gets its name. The name comes from the Scottish burn meaning a large stream or small river. Bournemouth prides itself with its wonderful gardens, the local parks department having its own nurseries, and a team of dedicated gardeners and greenkeepers tending to more than 1,000 hectares of green space, roughly 20% of the town. Coming up on our right is the Royal Bath Hotel, the very first hotel in Bournemouth. It was opened on the day of Queen Victoria's coronation in June 1838. As we travel down Westover Road, to our left is the Art Deco Pavilion Theatre, now nearly 100 years old. It hosts a back-to-back programme of plays, musicals, concerts and comedy, and is also the home to Pavilion Dance Southwest, an inspirational charity that has, in the last 10 years, allowed more than 500,000 people from every section of society to experience the joy of dance. Look up to the right for more Art Deco buildings which used to house a number of hotels, an ice rink and 2 cinemas. One, the Bournemouth, saw the Beatles play a 6-night residency in the summer of 1963, just before Beatlemania took the band around the world. The same year, the Bournemouth also hosted the Rolling Stones and Cliff Richard and the Shadows. Bournemouth Square is really considered the centre of the town, with the main department stores and meeting places. Now pedestrianised, for many years it was the main intersection where 7 roads from the north, the east and west met. A number of the original buildings surrounding the square were lost due to bombing during the Second World War, but nothing like the extent of Southampton to the east and Plymouth to the west. Through the centre you'll see the garden stretching back inland in one direction and down to the seafront in the other, making a mile-long green corridor along the Bourne Stream, which gives Bournemouth its name. Former Prime Minister Winston Churchill holidayed in Bournemouth as a child, where he would sail a model boat in the stream. Shortly coming up on our left is BH2, the new cinema and restaurant complex. But this was once the site of the town's bus station, which was so large it had 2 levels. Between the 1930s and the 1970s, the bus station was buzzing with holidaymakers during the summer months. However, it was badly damaged by fire during 1976. Although around 80 buses on the upper level managed to be driven out, 16 coaches on the lower level were destroyed, and the building was finally demolished in 1982. And head back up the hill towards the seafront, look out for a white turreted building on your left called the Royal Exeter Hotel. It's on the site of the very first house which was built in the town by the founder of Bournemouth, Lewis Tregonwell. For many years this area was open heathland, but by the 1790s smugglers were using the area to move their contraband from the cliff tops and chines. Tregonwell was stationed here as a captain of militia, and his job was to defend against a possible French invasion and to also help combat the smugglers. The area's most famous smuggler was Isaac Gulliver. In 1810, after Tregonwell had retired from service as a Dorset Ranger, he brought his wife Henrietta here, and she fell in love with the sea views. They bought the land from St George Taps and built their summer residence.
This area has an extremely wide choice of hotels and guest houses. There is something for everyone, from young person's budget accommodation costing £20 a night, through to the very expensive and very plush Marriott Highcliffe, the choice of politicians attending party conferences, standing on the left just above a lift to the beach. The very big investments in more hotels, bars and restaurants reflects Bournemouth's potential as the South Coast's leading resort. and the fact that the area is very busy on weekends throughout the year. At the next roundabout, notice the mature pine trees that dominate the street scene from here on. 200 years ago, Bournemouth looked very different. It would have been bare and sandy heathland, like much of the New Forest to the east and Dorset to the west. But then landowners started planting more than 3 million Scots pines. This was partly to replenish the country's timber stocks after the wars with the French, and partly to cash in on the supposed health benefits of the sea air blowing through the pine needles. By the 1880s, the transformation was complete. The Dorset writer Thomas Hardy called Bournemouth Sandbourne in his novel Tess of the D'Urbervilles, and described it as a Mediterranean lounging place on the English Channel. Truer and truer with our special microclimate and global warming.
Let's drive deeper into the pine woods along a purpose-built scenic drive with amazing views of the coastline. If the weather is clear, a fine view is coming up on the left of the white chalk cliffs of Old Harry at the end of the Isle of Purbeck. The road follows valleys called chines, transformed by the erosion of the sand and gravel into lush microclimates that entice the visitor to explore. We're following Durley Chine, and we will cross over Middle Chine and Alum Chine before meeting more of them later. These chines provided cover for smugglers moving contraband inland. Smuggling was not so much a cottage industry as serious organised crime. To avoid paying tax on drink and tobacco from France, smuggling depended on gangs of local men to receive the goods from boats and hide them if required before wider distribution. The area was littered with tunnels and secret chambers to stash the contraband. The biggest boss of them all was Isaac Gulliver, who led a small army decked out in his own livery. When his home was demolished, it was found to contain a secret room only accessible through a door 10 feet up a chimney.
The bus will be slowing down to cross some bridges that cross the chines. The most famous of the bridges was a rustic walkway where an accident occurred in 1892 that could have dramatically changed the whole course of history. The future Prime Minister and wartime leader Winston Churchill was a teenager on holiday with his younger brother and cousin. They chased him along the bridge. When he tried to jump across to a fir tree, he lost his grip and fell 30 feet to the ground below. He was unconscious for 3 days and bedbound for 3 months.
Provide a microclimate that allows plants from Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Asia and South America to flourish. These award-winning tropical gardens were first established in the 1920s and replanted in 1996. Follow the well-marked plant trail through the yuccas and agaves, the plant from Mexico that is the basic ingredient of tequila. The name of this chine is alum chine, called after a substance that was produced here 400 years ago from minerals found in the sand. Alum was used to fix the colour of dyed cloth and for softening leather in the tanning process. Mining didn't carry on for long, but some claim that the first chemical industry in Britain was born in this area.
Resident of the Chines was Robert Louis Stevenson, the adventure story writer best known for Treasure Island. He came to Bournemouth for his health and lived close to here for 3 years in the 1880s, producing The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Kidnapped. The success of these works allowed him to travel to Samoa in search of even better health, but he died there in 1894. He called his house here Skerryvore, after a Scottish lighthouse built by his family. Skerryvore was destroyed during the Second World War, but you can visit a memorial garden on its site.
As we come into Westbourne, we pass elegant houses and reach an affluent area with many small independent shops, posh boutiques, delis and restaurants. Westbourne is known to its residents as the Village and is admired for the friendly atmosphere of its streets and arcades. It has such a great reputation that people come from all over Bournemouth and Poole to eat and drink here. Westbourne is also home to some of the best pubs in Bournemouth, a great place to sample the very best of British beer, real ale from local producers like Hall and Woodhouse, or the Ringwood Brewery.
Look across to the large roundabout on the right called County Gates. These days, you can see the offices of an insurance company, Liverpool and Victoria in the centre. But for many years, this was the boundary between the counties of Dorset to the west and Hampshire to the east. In 1974, Bournemouth and Christchurch were incorporated into Dorset, boosting the size of the small county enormously. Today, roughly half of Dorset's population of over 700,000 lives in the Poole-Bournemouth conurbation.
Existed as a town. The sandy, acidic soil, characteristic of the area, provides very little nutrients for crop plants. The plants that do thrive, gorse, bracken and heather, can still be found in many little pockets in people's gardens, the edges of parks and along the top of the cliff. Look out for the yellow gorse bushes. Warmed by the sun, the small, shiny, edible flowers give off a sweet smell, reminiscent of coconuts.
Next stop, Branksome Chine. Hop off the bus here to get straight onto the beach. There is a seafront promenade, and if you turn left, you can walk a mile and a half or so, and you will reach Bournemouth Pier. Turn right, and you can walk just over a mile until you reach Sandbanks. If you walk straight ahead, you can enjoy a blue flag beach with some of the cleanest bathing water in England. Also on the beach is an elegant restaurant that is especially known for its variety of fresh fish daily. It's in an Art Deco building of the 1930s, which housed the country's first solarium, offering artificial sunshine under ultraviolet lamps all year round.
If you look to the right as we climb the hill, you can see the start of one of the longest chines, Branksome Chine. It stretches inland for a mile and a half and is said to have been a regular route for smugglers as they headed inland. One visitor who appreciated the walks here was the poet John Betjeman. He wrote, "Walk the asphalt paths of Branksome Chine, in resin-scented air like strong Greek wine." The houses either side of the Chine have some of the biggest plots in the area, affording maximum privacy, making them very desirable and very expensive. With many homes selling for over £1 million, electric gates and swimming pools and supercars are the norm. In this area of Poole, comparisons with Beverly Hills are not unwarranted.
The village at the top of the hill is an exclusive neighbourhood called Canford Cliffs. If you wish to visit Compton Acres Gardens, be ready to ring the bell in the village and hop off just after it. After a 3-minute walk, you'll be wandering around 7 distinct ornamental gardens, including an Italian garden and a Japanese garden, with spectacular views across Poole Harbour. Someone has worked out that the average wealth of the residents of Canford Cliffs is within the top 2% of people in the country. If you look carefully, you can see some signs. Rolls Royces are commoner on the streets here than anywhere else. A hairdressing salon offers a valet parking service, and the luxurious cafes are designed so that you can both see and be seen if you wish. Canford Cliffs hit the headlines when a bank decided not to allow clients to use its branch unless they had an income of £100,000 a year, but that did not affect the village's reputation for a very friendly atmosphere. After the village, enjoy the gradual descent towards Poole Harbour, with many fabulous new houses being built on either side.
Bottom of the hill will be returning to sea level on reaching the shore of Poole Harbour. This is the second largest natural harbour in the world after Sydney Harbour in Australia. You'll see that it is popular with all types of boat owners, and particularly windsurfers. The harbour has double tides, which means that there is a useful amount of high water to sail in during each 24-hour period. If you want to drive round the harbour, it's about 25 miles. But if you were to follow the shoreline closely, it would be about 5 times longer. The biggest island in the middle of the harbour is Brownsea Island, one of 5 islands in the harbour. Hidden out of sight between Brownsea and the Purbeck Hills in the distance is Fursey Island, and towards the west are Green, Round and Long Island. Poole lies over to the right, and so does Wareham, sandwiched between two rivers emptying into the back of the harbour. They are the River Froome and the River Piddle. That's a name which is back in favour after the starchy Victorian times when it was sometimes called the River Trent. An easy boat trip from Poole Quay will take you to Wareham for fish and chips on its quay or a walk around its Saxon defences. If you look between the houses on the left, you can see the beach. We're on a thin spit of land between Poole Harbour to our right and the English Channel to our left.
The tip of the Sandbanks Peninsula has been called the Monte Carlo of the South Coast and has one of the highest land values in the world, just behind Tokyo and Manhattan. Until the 1920s, this place was covered in granite-infested sand dunes, but by 1999, plots were being bought and sold for more than £1 million. The most sought-after ones have water frontage, often with their own landing stage. This is a place where a developer might pay £5 million for a plot of land, tear down a perfectly good new house on it, and put up a steel and glass super home selling for £10 million. As well as houses, there are a couple of hotels, shops, and places to eat, including one of Rick Stein's restaurants. The former Beatle John Lennon bought a house here for his aunt Mimi in 1965, and he would often visit to escape the limelight and the surrounding fans. She continued to live here until her death in 1991. The following year, the house was bulldozed, and today a new house sits on the site.
Coming up on the left is where cars queue for the ferry across to the perfect sandy beach of Shell Bay and the rest of the Isle of Purbeck. It only takes about 3 minutes and is great for pedestrians and cyclists too. Because of the very strong tidal currents that run through the harbour entrance, the ferry pulls itself along on 2 large chains. When the chains are worn out, they're used by local fishermen to provide moorings in the harbour. Beyond the ferry, we come to more fabulous properties, many lived in by well-known people such as Harry Redknapp. Harry's a local treasure in these parts because in his time he's managed Bournemouth, Southampton and Portsmouth.
Brownsea Island is across the water to our left. It's very popular with walkers, bird watchers and theatre goers where the annual open-air productions take place. Brownsea Castle at the left-hand end of the island is leased to the John Lewis Partnership, the owners of the Waitrose supermarket chain and the John Lewis department stores. It's used for training and as a retreat for staff to stay in and enjoy sharing it with the resident peacocks and red squirrels after the day trippers have gone home. The island is one of the few places in southern England where red squirrels survive because grey squirrels have never been introduced to the island. The island used to have a clay mine and pottery, but all activity had ended by the time the last private owners, the Bonham Christie family, left in the early 1960s. Brownsea is famous as the home of the Scouting movement. Scouting began in 1907 when Robert Baden-Powell held the first Scouting camp on the island. He'd been a British Army general during the Boer War and saw a need for a new type of training in practical skills and leadership. Currently, over 31 million boys and girls in 216 countries are scouts and guides. You can see a bronze statue of Robert Baden-Powell on Poole Quay, and Poole Quay is the place to get a boat across to Brownsea Island. Please ask the driver for more details.
Brownsea Island sits Fursey Island and the Wych Farm oil field. It was developed by BP in the late 1980s, and at its peak it was Western Europe's largest onshore oil field, producing over 100,000 barrels of oil a day. The oil field is in one of the country's most environmentally sensitive areas. The drillers used a directional drilling technique to tap into reservoirs extending right out 10 miles under Poole Bay to the area in front of Bournemouth Pier. The oil and gas extracted are pumped through an underground pipeline to the Fawley oil refinery near Southampton.
Sailing boats, windsurfers, kite surfers and cargo vessels are not the only activity out there on the waters. The biggest ones you will see belong to the ferry companies linking Poole with the Channel Islands, Cherbourg and St Malo. They use a channel 25 feet deep, but the average depth of the rest of the harbour is only a couple of feet. Sometimes you can see dark-coloured inflatable boats containing members of the Special Boat Service, the SBS, out on manoeuvres. The SBS is the Special Forces of the Royal Navy, manned mostly by superfit Royal Marines and based at Hamworthy, just across a lifting bridge in Poole. The SBS are the UK's equivalent of the US Navy SEALs. They specialise in amphibious operations using mini-subs and small boats for intelligence gathering and counter-terrorism operations.
Also on the water, but trained to save lives rather than to take them, are lifeboats from the Royal National Lifeboat Institution's headquarters and college, which are also in Poole. The RNLI is a charity that has saved lives at sea around the coasts of Great Britain since its foundation in 1824, and its lifeboats, whose crew members are mostly unpaid volunteers, help more than 15,000 people every year. If you see bright orange boats, they could well be lifeboats being tested or crew being trained. And the local authorities support RNLI lifeguard stations on Poole and Bournemouth's 7 miles of sandy beaches, helping you to swim in the clean and safe conditions which have won the European Blue Flag Award over 20 times since the 1980s, more than any other British resort.
Travelling through the area called Lilliput, and now we're beginning to get close again to shallow tidal inlets and reclaimed land on the left. The road narrows to go under a high railway bridge carrying the main railway line between Weymouth and London Waterloo. It takes about 2 hours by train to London. Some people commute there from this area every day. Further west at Wareham, the line used to connect with a branch line to Swanage, but it was taken up in the early 1970s. Soon after, a group of enthusiastic local volunteers joined together to reopen a short section of the track to steam trains. They've been so successful that special steam trains from London can now run occasionally between London and Swanage, and there are hopes of a permanent connection to the rest of the rail network.
We will shortly be slowing down to enter Poole Park, but first we pass Poole Civic Centre, which used to be the home of Poole Borough Council until it joined up with Bournemouth and Christchurch in 2019 with the formation of BCP Council. The Civic Centre was built from Portland limestone in 1931 in the Art Deco style. On the outside, just below the cast iron and lead guttering, are 24 superb sculptured stone reliefs depicting historical events from the earliest times to the 20th century. Poole Park was constructed on land given to people of Poole by Lord Wimborne. Covering more than 100 acres, the area used to be marshland and grazing meadows and was opened by Edward, Prince of Wales in 1890. Known as the People's Park, the area is well used by locals and visitors alike. If you fancy stretching your legs, there is a flat half-hour walk from here to Poole Quay.
The Romans made a supply base in the harbour when they invaded 2,000 years ago, but until Norman times, 1,000 years later, Wareham was the more important port. In the Middle Ages, Poole suffered raids by Spanish and French attackers, and gained some prosperity when it won the right to export wool, a product so vital to the country's economy that even today the Speaker of the House of Lords has a symbolic sack of wool as his throne. After the new colonies in North America had been founded, Poole had lucrative trade exporting all kinds of provisions, including tobacco pipes made of clay from around the harbour. But the real money spinner was trading dried cod from Newfoundland to the Catholic countries of Europe to meet their demand for fish in exchange for wine and olive oil from the Mediterranean. This made local merchants vastly rich and explains the opulent houses you'll see in the High Street and on the quay in Poole. But 200 years ago, other ports took over this trade, and Poole dwindled in importance as its harbour proved too shallow for the new generation of ships.
Centre for the Arts. Housing a variety of different performance spaces, it is one of the largest art centres outside of London. As well as being home to the world-famous Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra, it has also hosted many famous bands from Oasis to U2, and singers Kate Bush and Tina Turner. Michael Jackson even played the venue early in his career as part of the Jackson 5. In front of us is the large Barclays House. The iconic building has dominated the centre of Poole for more than 40 years and, at its peak, employed more than 2,500 people. Locally, if you did not work there yourself, you would almost certainly know someone who did. To our left is the Dolphin Shopping Centre, formerly the Poole Arndale Centre, one of 23 Arndale centres built by property developers Arnold Harkenbach and Sam Chippendale, the Arndale being a portmanteau of their names, Arnold and Chippendale. Whilst never being celebrated for its architectural merit, it was one of the first American-style shopping malls to be built in the UK. As we travel over Towngate Bridge, we cross the main London Waterloo to Weymouth railway line and have views across to Hulls Bay to our right, a large area of Poole Harbour which is reached by the narrow channel that runs in front of Poole Quay. This area is known as Hunger Hill and was the site of a windmill, benefiting from winds coming in from the southwest across Poole Harbour, at one time seen as a miserable and desolate place where nothing would grow, hence the name Hunger. We will now be passing on our right a number of buildings of the RNLI. The RNLI, one of the country's biggest charities, has its headquarters based here in Poole. In addition to the central administration, this is also where new lifeboats are designed, tested and put through their sea trials. There is a college where crew members can learn the vital skills that allow them to go out in all weathers and help mariners in distress. The college includes an indoor training pool that can simulate the worst of sea conditions, with waves, wind, rain, and even artificial thunder and lightning. The pool also allows crews to practice their capsize drills with full-size inshore lifeboats that can be tipped over on purpose and then righted again, all inside the training pool. We will soon be at Poole Quay, where the bus will turn left before stopping outside the Thistle Hotel. Please remain seated until the bus has come to a stop. If you have a bus and boat combination ticket, please head straight to the Blue City Cruises kiosk back along the quayside to reserve your place on your preferred sailing. There are lots of things to see and do on Poole Quay, but be sure to take a walk through the old town and see some of the historic buildings, with the oldest, Scaplan's Court, next to the Poole Museum, dating back to the 13th century. The bus will leave from this stop on the hour every hour, and the last departure of the day is at 6 o'clock. If the quay is closed later for an event, please use the alternative stop by the multi-storey Quay Visitors Car Park.
We're meant to get very heavy rain of next hours before we get up to Bournemouth. It's a good job we did go in the bottom on this trip. Good job we did. Very heavy rain, mate. It has a big difference.
it's the same with us.
Since it's hello.
Yeah, you alright?
Yeah.
Are you going to be alright there, or?
Oh, yeah, it's a bit more room, but it's fine.
Yeah.
We won't be.
Oh, it's a bit more room now.
Alfie do can see us. Let's go. Dead John. See
Second time being here today. Second time being here today. Go on, it's twice. It's fine.
Oh no, it'd be lunch and then us.
Angle. That. Oh, music's turned.
Yeah, stand down. Might as well hear Discovery Doors.
Thank you very much. Yes, I've got the voucher. I've got the ticket. Okay, thank you very much.
Just say you'll probably be there, but we're involved at the moment. Yeah. No, yeah, soon to get back. Yeah.
I don't know until back at the stairs. Letting our music.
it's just like
If you have just joined us, welcome to City Sightseeing Bournemouth and to your tour of Pool Bay and Sandbanks. Please remain seated when the bus is moving and ring the bell if you wish to get off. If you have any questions, please do feel free to ask your driver, but only when the bus has stopped. The journey back to Bournemouth takes about half an hour and finishes back at Bournemouth Pier. As we set off, to our right we pass the Fish Quay and the old lifeboat station and museum. Across the water we can also see Brownsea Island and sandbanks in the distance. We are now taking a route around Beta Park. The roads we are travelling on include Newfoundland Drive and Labrador Drive, referencing the strong links with the Canadian fisheries. In 1497, the John Cabot was given letters by the king to go and seek a western route to Asia. What he found instead was Newfoundland, where the waters were so teeming with fish, the boats were impeded. The discovery more than 500 years ago resulted in great prosperity for the town of Poole, whose fleet over time would grow to more than 300 vessels. Often, vessels would spend 2 summers and 1 winter in Newfoundland, and large numbers of people from Poole settled there, and it is said that the true Dorset dialect lasted much longer in the remote North American colony than it did here. If you follow the harbourside walk, you will see the remains of the Powder House, purpose-built store for gunpowder. After there was a fire on Poole Quay, very close to a warehouse storing gunpowder, it was decided that the risk was too great for the town and that gunpowder should be stored away from the quayside. In 1775, the building was constructed on the shoreline at Beta. With only a small door and 1 small window, the walls were 2 foot thick and the roof was of a light construction, so if there was ever an explosion, it would be contained within the walls and only the roof would be blown off. Fortunately, its design was never tested. Across Beta Park on our right was a small island, joined to the town by a causeway that had an isolation hospital on it, a place where people with contagious diseases such as smallpox would come and be treated. In reality, for many, it was the place where their days ended. Nearby was also the site where victims of the Black Death were buried. The plague is understood to have reached these shores from continental Europe in 1348 through the port of Weymouth in West Dorset. Once infected, people would not become ill for 5 or 6 days, giving them the opportunity to spread the disease throughout the community. Death occurred in 60% of cases, and England's population shrunk by between 1/3 and 1/2. Whilst the plague still exists in some parts of the world, it is now easily treatable and no longer poses such a threat. Leave the shore of Poole Harbour without mentioning the flying boats that were once a common sight on the water. As aviation began to take off in the beginning of the 20th century, the south coast began to see many air pageants and air races. In days where airstrips were rare, planes would take off and land on any piece of suitable flat land. Indeed, in 1910, Charles Rolls, who started the Rolls-Royce company, was the first Brit to be killed in a powered flight accident when his plane crashed on such a piece of land at Hainesbury Head, to the east of Bournemouth. During the 1930s, large flying boats were developed that would open up new routes to destinations without adequate facilities to land a conventional plane. Poole became an important centre for the starting off point from the UK to destinations around the world, including the USA and Canada, India and Burma, Hong Kong, Singapore, and even Australia. Throughout the war and until 1948, the British Overseas Airways Corporation, which was to eventually become British Airways, had 600 staff based in Poole to support their flying boat services. There were up to 24 of its passenger flying boats based in the harbour. millers. The bakery cum pie factory was opened in 1937 and grew into one of the biggest pie and sausage roll producers in the country. Pigs would arrive and go into one end of the factory, and pies and sausage rolls would come out of the other end. It was said the only part of the pig they didn't use was the squeal. Poole Hospital to your left is the main hospital for the area, with a busy accident and emergency department and specialist maternity suite. Every year, an average of 3,800 babies are born in the hospital. That's just over 10 a day, but it can be up to 20. Bournemouth Hospital does also have a maternity suite, but Poole deals with all Bournemouth babies that are early or experiencing complications during delivery. One benefit of a stay in Poole Hospital is the fine views many of the wards have over Poole Harbour. Sits in the county of Dorset. It is run by Dorset County Council, based at County Hall in Dorchester. A few lesser known facts about Dorset. The county of Dorset stretches from Christchurch in the east to Lyme Regis in the west, and then up to Sherborne and Gillingham in the north, not to be confused with the identically spelt Gillingham in Kent. It covers an area of about 100 square miles, or 2,500 square kilometres. The county has 8 members of parliament, all are Conservative. The county has a population of about 750,000 people, of which approximately half live in Bournemouth and Poole. The Celtic name for Dorsetshire apparently means the place of fisticuffs. The Dorset Naga is grown in Dorset and is said to be the hottest chili in the world. It has an average score of 923,000 Scoville heat units. The first fossil shop in Britain was opened in Lyme Regis in 1826. It was run by Mary Anning, whose family found fossils from the cliffs to sell to tourists. Mary became an expert in the field, but couldn't join the Geological Society because she was a woman. As we make our way towards Bournemouth, we pass through Parkstone. There are 2 parts to this area, Upper Parkstone at the top of the hill and Lower Parkstone, which is much closer to sea level. We'll be travelling through Lower Parkstone. The area at the centre of the village is called Ashley Cross. During the daytime, it is relaxing with its lush green park and water fountains. At night time, it comes alive with its good mix of bars and restaurants around the edges. This area is another one of these sought-after parts of Poole, along with sandbanks, lily pads and camping cliffs. But up until the 1920s and 30s, much of this area was agricultural land. we're heading through Branksome. Until the late 19th century, the area was mainly unbuilt heath and woodlands. With the development and growth of nearby Bournemouth, the area became popular as a place to live. With the development of the railways, Branksome continued to grow, served by the new Victorian line between Wimborne, Poole and Bournemouth. Branksome railway station, which still serves the area today, helped encourage a massive growth in the early 20th century. The area became an official suburb of Poole in the 1960s, and by the 1980s almost all open areas of Branksome were built upon. One notable resident of Branksome was Lord Ventry, the airship pioneer. Return to County Gates, marking the old county boundary of Dorset and Hampshire. The large building in the centre of the roundabout is the headquarters of LV, formerly Liverpool Victoria. As a mutual society, LV has no shareholders and is owned by its members, but are all the policyholders of Liverpool Victoria Friendly Society Limited. Previous to LV, the building was home to Frizzell Insurance, and the roundabout is still to this day known locally to many as Frizzell Roundabout. There are a number of other large insurance and finance companies based in Bournemouth, the most notably being JP Morgan Chase, the American bank. Their large campus is located just as you come into Bournemouth and is home to more than 4,000 employees. Bournemouth is seen as a good place to set up business. One of the key benefits is that when recruiting regionally, nationally or even internationally, it is seen as being a great place to come and live for prospective employees. Passing through Westbourne, notice that most of the retailers here are independent shops, bucking the national trend for homogenised high streets. An affluent area, many of the shops offer a superior range of luxury goods to suit the local clientele. To your right is the glass-roofed Westbourne Arcade, which hosts, amongst other things, a private cinema. To your left, spot the Tesco's local, hidden in an old church, and look at the impressive facade of the bingo hall, once the Grand Cinema.
Miles to the north, has one of the longest runways in the south of England and often welcomed Concorde. The airport opened in 1941 as RAF Herne, and as part of its wartime duties, it was home to a range of aircraft, including Spitfires, Wellingtons and Typhoons. Towards the end of 1942, it became a base for a number of American squadrons. Some facts and figures about Bournemouth, its residents and its visitors. The population of Bournemouth is approximately 162,500. Bournemouth has 5.5 million visitors a year. The value of tourism to the town is £480 million a year, and it supports 16,500 jobs. A total of 53,000 foreign students visit Bournemouth each year, studying at 34 recognised language schools. The Littledown Centre is the most successful leisure facility in the south of England, with approximately 1.5 million visits a year.
The area known as the Triangle is just a 5-minute walk to the seafront via Commercial Road and is the hub of the Bournemouth gay scene. It is a vibrant part of town full of bars, restaurants, cafes and various shops. Every year during the summer, Bourne Free, which is Bournemouth's Pride March, takes place around here, along with other events focusing on the arts and culture. The main Triangle area is also home to the Bournemouth Central Library, which opened in 2003 at a cost of £9.5 million. In the British Construction Industry Awards competition, it won the Prime Minister's Better Public Building Award. As we return to the centre of Bournemouth, we pass two of the newest developments in town. To your right, the Hilton Hotel, and ahead, the BH2 Entertainment Complex. Both were built on underused car parks and are part of a programme by the local council to improve the town centre, unlocking economic value from underutilised assets. About 10 car parks are set to be developed, bringing many hundreds of new residential properties into the town centre. The two traditional Bournemouth industries of finance and tourism are going strong, but there is also a huge growth in the media and creative industries. Bournemouth University has in many ways acted as a catalyst for this, producing graduates who have gone on to take lead roles in a number of Oscar-winning films. The National Centre for Computer Animation continues to produce amazing talent, but not all of it leaves the town, and it was recently highlighted as having one of the healthiest tech economies in the UK. Bournemouth town centre has a number of very large churches, which provides church capacity for the high levels of summer visitors. With falling congregations, some of these buildings have found new uses. At the end of Westover Road, you will see St Peter's Church, which is one of the largest in the town, and today still has an active congregation. The church has many famous connections, including Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein, who was buried here in the family vault. We are now nearing the end of the tour as we come back to Bournemouth Pier. We hope you have enjoyed your tour today and thank you for travelling with City Sightseeing Bournemouth. Please make sure you take all of your belongings with you and hold on to your ticket, as it entitles you to 10% off any other city sightseeing tour in more than 100 destinations around the world. Our sister operation, Discover Dorset Tours, offers regular full and half-day tours to the Jurassic Coast, Lulworth Cove and Durdle Door, the Isle of Wight, Stonehenge and a number of other local and regional destinations. Please ask your driver today if you would like more information or pick up a free leaflet from the lower deck. Thanks again for travelling with us and we wish you a safe and pleasant stay in Bournemouth.
On the watch angle, go. Well, it was an angle next time. Well, we can go in the shower in 3 streets to go, we can go in. Or we can come back in here if it gets too heavy. It's in the front from here. Or we can come. It poured down a rain ankle. Well, I knew it was going to rain. That's why I did it. Thank you, Angle. Thank you, Angle. We'll see you again in the half term.
Yes.
Bye. I'll go in the shout and watch Angle go. Well, there's Marek on this one next time. Hopefully, I'm stopping it.